Welcome to the Purpose Focused Advisor, a podcast for financial planners, advisors, and RIAs looking to get the most out of yourself and your business. Join Rob Brown as he walks you through a journey that will allow you to take action in your business and your life so you can be the best that you can possibly be. Now here's your host, Rob.
It's my favorite time of the week. Time once again for the Purpose Focused Advisor podcast. Your host, Rob Brown here, along with my guest, Brad Sparks. Brad has been an advisor for over a decade, and he runs an independent RIA with his partner, Eric Sarton. And from their RIA, they have launched a new tech platform, Pomarium, which we're going to talk about today. It's a way for advisors to unlock personalized investment management in their portfolio. So we're going to dig into that during the course of the show today. Welcome to the show, Brad.
Hi, Rob. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no, it's great to have you here. Brad and I had a conversation several weeks ago, and he had just had some surgery and was in pain. So, Brad, it looks like you're feeling a little bit better today than you were when we last spoke.
Yeah, I was a husk of a human back then.
Yeah, no, I was appreciative that you held the appointment and ground it out so that we could get to the point of having you on the show. So, Brad, talk about a little bit about how you got into the investment advice space. You've been at it, as I said, 10 years now, and then we'll talk about this. The move towards your new tech tool a little bit more down the line.
Yeah, I'll start with just kind of my inception into the industry because I was not trained in finance. I actually have my master's in geophysics. So really what I was finding is that a lot of my colleagues and peers kind of in the sciences and engineering and things like that struggled, despite being really intelligent, struggled with personal financial management. So I wanted to get in the industry to help them. And I knew I didn't want to go into geophysics and just kind of follow code books, right? Like most advisors are entrepreneurial. I have the same type of spirit as we'll, talk about probably a little bit more later. And so I felt like I could still stay within that network of people, but help them in a different way or contribute to that group in a different way. So I started my own practice, kind of built a book from scratch. And then here we are, I started a big kind of BD and then went independent. And then here we are 10 years later.
Why did you move to independence?
Oh boy. How long do we have?
Long enough.
Yeah, that's right. There's a lot. I think being entrepreneurial, we were actually really restricted by compliance and systems that we couldn't use. We couldn't even use Right Capital. Like we had to use a certain planning system. So I think that was one of the reasons the restrictions. I think the other big one was just the cost that we were being charged to be a part of a large organization, but we didn't feel like we were getting close to that value. And given the movement towards independent and a lot of the services and tech that's out there, it's actually a lot easier than people think. To go independent from an ease of use standpoint and from a cost standpoint. So we kind of did a lot of that evaluation over a number of years and decided to make the switch.
Got it. Yeah, I think it's always good to understand that because BD platforms fit certain advisors who maybe don't have that entrepreneurial edge or they don't want to do everything that it takes to run a business. They just want to take care of their clients, and so there's a fit. But a large number of advisors, and they're the type of advisors, honestly, that I work with primarily, are independent. They love running their own show, and they do it for a variety of reasons. Sometimes it starts by wanting to save money, but in other times it's because of just being able to open up the possibilities to how they serve their clients, and they have some other itches that they want to scratch.
I think that sometimes in my black and white thinking, I can portray things as good or bad. And I think it's actually better to think of it as almost like linear or stepwise. Is a lot of times the big BDs or platforms allow for people to get their feet wet, learn the industry, have the support that they want. And then for some people, they kind of move on to doing that themselves once they really get a handle of how the industry operates.
Yeah, I like that because it isn't black and white, and we want to. I think in this world we want to make a lot of things black and white. It's either right or it's wrong, but there's all sorts
Yeah.
of middle that you have to navigate your way through. And I've met many advisors who started out with a BD with the intention of getting to know the business, leveraging the platform, and they planned to move away from it at some point. And then they realized, hey, I really love what I'm getting. I feel like I am getting a return on that investment that I'm making by sharing my fees, and they stick with it. And that's great.
Yeah,
That's great too.
totally.
So, talk about your RIA. Do you have a particular niche that you and your partner serve?
Yeah, and I don't know if it was the last episode or the one where you had three guests on it. One of them mentioned often the experience of going to an advisor is like going to a dentist. And I've used this example many a time because we felt the same thing. And that was part of the evolution of going independent is we really wanted to evolve that. So in that, we created our kind of like our own proprietary process that helped us to shape our planning and our recommendations and strategies specifically to cater to people's values and to do it on a personalized one-on-one basis. So a lot of our planning, it does include, investments in insurance and things like that, but we do a lot of, real estate analysis or entrepreneurial type coaching or consulting or business planning. Because what we found is that there are core principles that fit into most every plan, but everybody's different. And there's lots of different ways to have success. And it doesn't always have to be boilerplate. So that's what we really focused on when we went independent is how do we build this process that is catered to what everybody really cares about and how they relate to their money. Because the one thing that I did learn over the first 5 years or so of my business is I thought by working with engineers and people who were, more mathematical and science minded, that if I could just show them the most efficient outcome, they would always say yes. I was quickly proven wrong. And I did a lot of like soul searching about that. And what I realized is people are people, right? And money is one of the most emotionally charged things that we deal with. And so really for us, in my opinion, to do our job well as planners is to come up with an elegant solution that can cater to what someone feels comfortable about and resonates with emotionally and with their values, but also works from an efficiency standpoint. So that's really what our focus of our planning practice has evolved into.
So that's interesting that you say that about the like the more technology, for lack my word, not yours, nerdy kind of person. You think, well, they don't have that emotional attachment. Because I've worked with advisors who said, I do not work with engineers. We butt
Yes.
heads because they want to know too much. They ask all these technical questions, and that makes it hard for the advisor to connect.
Mhm.
But what you're saying is someone who is a geophysics major, so is a is a bit of a geek or a nerd,
Yeah.
probably there too. That
Yep.
that's there, but that human level of connection, because of what you're talking about, somebody's money and their future, you have to get to the heart of that to really have a sustainable long-term client relationship.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yep. And it's just you tap into that in different ways based on people's personality, but I think that's core to every person you're interacting with.
Yeah. And so I'm guessing that it's that journey of creating this very specialized way that you serve your clients that led you to saying, there's some tech missing here. And let's just go ahead and create that ourselves. And that's how you came to create Pomarian. So, do I have that right?
Mhm. Yeah, Pomarium. Yep.
Pomarium.
Like it's like aquarium, but POM instead of aqua.
Yeah. I practiced it before we started and I still screwed it up. You heard me practice it.
That's okay. We get jokes all the time about our logo should just be a Pomeranian because so many people call us
Yeah,
Pomeranian.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So talk about that. What was the switch that flipped that says that you said, "Hey, this is going on. Um,
Yeah.
that's getting in the way of the way that we want to serve our clients, and there isn't a solution, so we're going to create the solution."
Yeah. So I think it's actually funny that we start with a name because I think the name is important. Pomarium is Latin for orchard. And so our idea is we wanted to help everyone cultivate their own investment orchard. And we wanted to have the tech to do that in a scalable fashion because we're on Altruist as our custodian. And so Altruist has automated trading, tax loss harvesting. Like they have all the pipes to be able to handle a personalized portfolio for anybody. But we didn't have the tech to build it. So we literally spent 18 months vetting out tech and sub advisors and solutions out there. And there are sub advisors who will build, personalized investment options. But what we were finding is they were limited to to achieve the same amount of personalization. A lot of them had minimums of 1 million to 5 million on an account. And that, so it's only for a small amount of clients, which didn't fit for our business model. A lot of them are focused on tax management, which is good. And there's a value in that, but that's not everything. And so, and the third part is just the business model. Like, if we wanted to use this to grow in our new firm, our newer independent firm, we didn't really feel like we needed to pay an AUM fee that's going to scale as our book of business scales. Like, our need was for a technology, almost like a planning software, like a Right Capital. You pay a fixed fee, you say what your investment strategy is, you say what a client needs, and it builds you any type of portfolio you want. So that's what we couldn't find. That's why we decided to build it. And like I said, it's been another crazy journey because we spent 18 months vetting it out, and then we made some hard decisions to say, hey, if this is the route we're going to go, then we're going to spend less time focusing on the RIA. And we just spent a lot of time breaking away to become an independent RIA. So it's been a hard journey, but it's been a really fun and exciting one. And the progress we made has been really exciting.
So that the audience understands, dig into what Pomarium does. What is that? What's what's behind the magic curtain?
Yeah. So you can put in, so basically when an advisor starts using Pomarium, they get to build whatever investment strategy they're already using. Okay. And they can replicate right now because we're newer, you can just replicate the strategies for US mid and large cap. We will expand asset classes, but our reason for that is, like I said, we're on Altruist, so they do fractional shares, and they have automated tax loss harvesting and rebalancing and things like this. So we knew that we wanted portfolios that were stock-based, direct stock-based, because you get rid of fees, you can unlock more personalization, you can unlock better tax efficiency and tax management as an advisor, right? And those are areas we really think we can bring value to clients. So that's what it does, is you can think of it as it takes your model portfolio or whatever investment strategy you're using, and it transforms it into a stock portfolio that then, that's kind of the phase one, then it allows you to do certain things like values filters or screens. We have a client survey in there, and then it will risk adjust accounts or portfolios on an account basis. So that's the core of what Pomarium is right now.
And so it's more than just a rebalancing tool.
Oh yeah.
So
this is critical.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry for interrupting you there.
No. I wanted to dig in there because I appreciate what you're trying to do with Pomarium in terms of creating portfolios that are advisor run but client focused, and not just by saying, okay, this client's risk tolerance is such and such, so we're just going to hit the rebalancing tool and give them the stocks or the funds or whatever. It goes beyond that, and I think this is helpful to understand from both the standpoint of your tool, because I'd love for people who have an interest to get to know this, but also from the standpoint of how this helps you serve your clients because of the specialized way that you're approaching your business as an RIA.
Yeah. So a lot of, in my experience, of advisors are outsourcing their portfolio management because it's too difficult to do on their own, right? There's a lot of time required in building portfolios and researching and analyzing. And even if they do that on their own, it's all a back office process, right? So you can do it on your own. There's a lot of time, but it's not really client facing, but it's for clients, right? And for a lot of money for clients. So what we have found is if you actually want to cater to a client a little bit more in that process, a lot of times you had to sacrifice your strategy and your expertise. ESG is a really good example, right? Like ESG came about because people wanted to be more mindful of non-financial metrics in their portfolios and their investments. But the only option were a lot of these funds that kind of had a blanket strategy that you didn't have control on the filters. So you were catering to your client, but at the expense of your strategy. So Pomarium does both. It allows you to maintain your strategy while engaging your client. And we're building upon industry trends, which are that automated trading and tax management rebalancing is actually becoming pretty ubiquitous and inexpensive. So the value of a sub-advisor, let's say Aperio, for example, Aperio does the tax management, it builds the portfolios, and it trades it. But it's a hefty cost, right? It's like 25 basis points. What we really focus on is just the tech to build the portfolio with the advisor's control and the client's inputs. And then as a part of our company, we actually consult advisors to learn how to use the automated trading and tax management that's already at their disposal. So a really good example of this is Schwab, right? Like Schwab buys TD Ameritrade, they get access to iRebal. So, and iRebal is free for Schwab, for advisors on Schwab. iRebal can do automated trading, tax loss harvesting, and it's free. So if they have a portfolio building tool that can engage their clients better and still retain their strategy and their expertise and their scale, it doesn't take much time to use Pomarium really at all. You can blend those two things. And now you've got a modern portfolio offering that's using the free existing modern technology you have, and it's engaging your clients better and for a fraction of the cost. So that's where we saw the opportunity is like, hey, this is like the industry is ripe for something like this. And advisors actually have a lot of tools at their disposal to use it well and elevate their practice, which is, I mean, that's what we did
Right.
in ours too.
Because I think in the industry, especially the last handful of years, where the wind has been in our sails, the markets have really driven positive performance over a long period of time. It's been somewhat easy to just kind of ride that wave and and use the big tools that are out there and maybe get I don't want to say as you know, I'm a huge fan of financial advisors and the work that advisors do being so important. But I think there's also that continuous sharpening of the saw that maybe doesn't happen when things are going really well. And so you moved as an advisor to a different platform or use a different tool for rebalancing, whatever it might be. But then you stopped. You just say, okay, well, how can I make that better? But I also know most advisors who I work with who choose to do their create their own models and their own portfolios are always saying, how can I make this more efficient? Because it is something that takes time. You can't just flip a switch. You're giving up time to do something else to be in there managing those portfolios.
Yeah, exactly. And that's where we're not necessarily like there's elements of what we're doing that's kind of like direct indexing, but we're beyond that in that we have lots of different like factor levers and we're pulling from a lot of different data sources so that you can build robust portfolios that adhere to a retirement income strategy or that adhere to some sort of like more DFA type strategy or like a GARP strategy, right? Like direct indexing just takes the index and splits it up into the holdings. But we've gone beyond that to try and cater to whatever investment strategy you have. Because even like my partner and I have slightly different ideas on investment strategies. but we wanted a tool that was flexible to cater to both of how we thought about investing.
Yeah. So again, I think this, when I think about this from the standpoint of your RIA, it's fascinating to me that you, as an entrepreneur who's decided to create this independent practice, then says, but I still can't give my clients what they deserve based on the work that we're doing together. So I'm going to go start another business.
Yeah.
And you talked
You're
about,
pointing out some flaws in my personality here, Rob.
but you talked about that. You said, hey, you started to working and creating Pomarium early in the early stages of your RIA. That was a trade off. What was the purpose, the value behind making that decision for you as now is kind of less about the client and more about the owner of businesses?
Yeah. So entrepreneurs are always finding a problem and trying to come up with a solution, right? And most of the time we actually fail, but it's always testing and reiterating and all that kind of stuff. I felt like the industry had a larger opportunity to solve, which is because of the advancements in technology. We as advisors and practitioners can deliver more value to our clients, significantly more value at less cost, right? Like we don't need to use inflexible funds anymore, right? We can utilize automated trading and fractional shares. And so if we could just build the technology that bridges that gap, right, on tapping into our relational value with our clients, engaging them in the investment process, but maintaining our expertise in utilizing modern technology, like that creates a much better industry. And that is the type of thing that's exciting to me. I mean, working with my clients and building relationships is also exciting. But for me personally, the idea of improving an industry is something I can't pass up, where I love improving the lives of my, 150 to 100 clients. But improving an industry has the ability to improve the lives of lots more people.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that you said that, and I say this somewhat often on this podcast. I am, and actually, maybe I've already said it on this. On this podcast, on this episode, I'm a big fan of financial advisors, and the one great thing about being a fan of advisors is I know I am helping people who are helping people. So there's an exponential um, uh, kind of good in the world that we're able to do when we stop and say, hey, how can I change this technology or create this technology that helps more people? It's being a financial advisor on steroids, and I think that's cool.
And that's where I think the industry is really exciting, because I'll give you kind of like an overview of how I think about the industry really fast. I believe financial advisors exist and came into existence to simplify something that was really complex, which is finances. And also that's really emotionally charged for people. And so they act as a boon, as an emotional support, and someone that can simplify something. But it's almost become so complex for them as the advisor that we focus so much now on process, like making more efficient processes. And now I think we started to do that, right? Like Altruist has done that, right? You can run an advisory practice. Like, I mean, it's crazy how many clients you can have without any staff, because all of the stuff is just done for you on Altruist. And what that allows us to do now is it's like, okay, it's solved this foundational problem about efficiency. Now we can look back towards our clients and say, hey, my core reason I exist is to help you, be here for you, connect with you, and simplify complex problems for you. And so now is where I think it gets really exciting with technology, because now the technology can help engage the client, right? Like it can boost that relationship, which is the core of why we exist as advisors anyway. So I think it's a fun time to be advisors.
Yeah, no, it absolutely is, and I think at the core of what you're saying is, as an advisor, you have to understand where your zone of genius is. What is that place where you can spend time and create the greatest value for your business and for your clients. And technologies and automations have are doing some of that work now that is letting you have that focus. But you've taken it one step further. You've said, but there's still something missing that probably wouldn't even been thought of a few years ago. But now, because of direct indexing being something that you can do, the world as it exists today and the technology as it exists today has created the need for more technology. It's the need for Pomerian. I was going to call it Pomeranian. I had the dog going past the
I
screen.
put it in your head.
Is really the genesis of it is because of the technologies and the automations that are out there that lets you create another step in that process. But it still goes back to how do we create something that will allow us to serve our clients the way that we believe they should be served in this highly personalized financial planning space.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think like from a business, if we're going to talk about like the business mind here as well, I do think that there's advisors, and a lot of advisors will disagree with me, but I personally believe that advisors face fee compression because there's so much digital solutions out there that can do some of the functionalities that we as advisors do. And so that's where Pomerium also helps advisors, is that it equips the advisor with a premium offering that can help work against some of that fee compression, right? Because this is something you can't just do on your own. You need an advisor to do it well. And so that was another element of what we were thinking of in our practice. And frankly, it ties back into our own RIA. Like we went to all of our clients and said, hey, we can build you a portfolio that adheres to the same strategy. But instead of paying your fund companies, why don't you just pay us? Because this is a premium service for you. So our average kind of fund expense on US mid and large cap was about 20 basis points. So we went to all of our clients and said, hey, would you like to do this for 20 basis points more? And they said 90% of them were like, yes, this is great. Like we would much rather pay you and do the same thing than pay a fund company. So we actually, in our practice, from a business standpoint, increased our revenue significantly by using Pomerium.
Right. And that's another really great point that you're making. And you're using a tech reason for why there won't be fee compression for advisors who constantly seek to add value. Now, not everybody's going to be able to do it by creating their own software, their own tech tool, but there is no fee compression for the advisor who is constantly delivering value. But that value that you're delivering today needs to be built upon in the future. It can't stay flat. What you were doing for your clients 5 years ago isn't worth as much as what you're doing for them today. So if you don't want to reduce your fees, keep adding value, keep looking for ways to drive value. You found a way to do that through Pomerium, but there are other ways that advisors can do that too, and constantly thinking, how can I improve what I'm doing? How can I make sure, using tools that I have at my disposal, communication sources, service upgrades, whatever it might be, how can I continuously give my clients what they deserve and drive that value? So not only do I not have to reduce my fees, I can raise my fees.
Yeah, and a good example of that on both sides. So when we went to independent and went to, and focused more on values, we also raised our fees there, right? It was a new service. It was providing more value, and nobody really scoffed at it. And then on the flip side, because I was doing a lot of research on when we built this on mutual funds and ETF fees, over the last 20 years, the average cost of mutual funds and ETFs has halved because they're effectively the same thing. And so in order to stay relevant, they have to cut costs, right? They're facing fee compression. So I think it's a really good point you bring up. Like if you're active and trying to deliver more value and see how you can do that, then yeah, you're always going to be seen as a premium.
Yeah. No, I'm actually working with the client right now, and we're raising fees. That's one of his main projects for this quarter. And 2 years ago, he was thinking about reducing his fees. he doesn't have to. He just continued to deliver value. The suite of things that he offers his clients is worth more. So I think that's a great point. So let's begin to land the plane with one last question. Advisors are really smart people, and they come up with lots of crazy ideas, and maybe some have an idea of creating a tech tool that they want to launch. Um, what How would you recommend somebody who's kind of got this idea that they want to vet to go about that so they can do it efficiently, and maybe it doesn't take them 18 months to get there, and lots of wasted time and money? How would you kind of help an advisor who's got an idea vet it and be able to say, hey, this is a go or a no go more quickly and efficiently? Or is that just once the genie's out of the bottle, you can't put it back in?
Yeah, I would say Pomarium's a little, maybe slightly different, because this is where Eric and I are crazy. It's like we have aspirations of becoming big, right? Like we want it to be the same type of brand that you would think of when you think of Fidelity, right? Like, so we knew if we were going to do that, we had to do a lot of research and market testing and things like that. I think on a much smaller scale, if you have a new idea on something you want to do or test out, I think, because I also teach an entrepreneurship class at Colorado State University. And so I tell the students this all the time, like you just have to do it, right? Like you just get it out there, test it. It's going to look terrible. It's going to feel terrible. But if it's a good idea, people will like it. And then you can refine on what it is. I think so often it's really easy to fall into the trap of like, this is a good idea, but I need to make it look perfect. I need to make sure it has no holes in it. And that's not true. Like think of all the stuff that you buy on Amazon that breaks right away, but you bought it because you liked the idea of it, right? It's like, I think that's critical, is that if you have an idea you want to test or like that you think is worth it, like pursuing, you just got to do it. And, do it on a back of a napkin, and then just verbally tell it to a client, and then put it on a spreadsheet. Okay. And then if it keeps working with 10 clients, okay, maybe now you hire a little web developer, right? And you just keep moving and get validation and reiterate along the way. That's what I would say.
So don't wasting time. Do it. Just get at it. If it really is something, an itch that you need to scratch it. Get it going.
Yeah.
Prove it out.
Yeah.
And I would assume in that, because you were also running your RIA, you had to say, okay, I'm going to dedicate a certain amount of time to that, or I'm going to protect the time of building the RIA so that there wasn't too much of the tech startup creeping into the RIA independence that you were getting into.
Yeah. I mean, we're at that point. We were able to, when I said we increased our fees, using Pomarium, that actually increased our fees enough to generate enough revenue to hire a new advisor. And so the new advisor has taken a lot of the time off our hands to
okay. So, but you had to figure out how to make that work, because if you weren't careful, you could start Pomarium, maybe it doesn't work, and then you just end up in the stockpile, what's that called, the junk pile of failed trash heap. Yeah, that's what I was looking for, of things that don't work. But when it started to work, you had to balance that time. And I think that's important to think about. And the other thing that you said that I think is great is that you are dreaming big, because you said that you want Pomarium to stand up there next to Fidelity, that you have that picture in your mind. And one of the things that I do when I'm working with advisors is I try, in our initial stages of working together, to go through a dream big exercise where they say crazy things like, I want to build a business that is going to rival Fidelity, or at least the brand will rival Fidelity. That's a great way to go into anything, because then you're measuring what you're doing against this big dream that you have for your future. So I'm assuming that was very intentional on your part and on Eric's part in being able to say that or think that.
Yeah, and I would commend you for the work you're doing, because one thing I've realized is as we had that vision and then we get into the weeds of actually execution, is it's really easy just subconsciously to shrink that vision, to solve every problem along the way. But that's where it's really helpful to have advisors and consultants who can bring up new ideas and hold you to, like, wait a second, think bigger, right? You started by thinking bigger, keep thinking bigger. I think it's really important.
Yeah, no, it is, because even if you don't get there, the journey is going to be a whole lot more fun, and maybe what you thought was important or that big dream was really wasn't important. It was just a bit of a North Star, a guide point that reminded you how important the work is that you're doing. I mean, because to me, that's what you're saying is we think what we're doing is so important in advancing the work that financial advisors do in serving their clients or fund managers do and putting their funds together, that it has incredible potential, and we can't take that off there. You weren't trying to say, okay, you didn't want to limit it before you even got it started.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Awesome. Well, Brad, I really appreciate your time today. Tell us, what's the best way for people to get to know more about Pomarium?
Yeah, I think the best way is going onto our website, which is www.getpomarium.com. So Pomarium.
Okay.
It's like aquarium, but yeah, that's probably the best way. You can look through a little demo there. You can schedule, or you can look through a walkthrough, or you can schedule a demo, which will probably be with me or
Okay.
Eric.
Awesome. So we'll be sure to put that info in the show notes as well. Oh, say to our audience, thank you again this week for listening in. Hope you. There's just so many good things that came out of this conversation, I think, to be able to put into action and thinking about how you are growing and building your business. And so I hope you take it away and put it to work. And of course, as always, we're rooting for your success. Have a great week.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of The Purpose-Focused Advisor. If you want to learn more, head over to our website, truestfancoaching.com. There you'll learn all about becoming a purpose-focused advisor. You'll also find today's show notes and links to the other gifts and resources we talked about during the episode. Again, thanks for listening, and remember, we're rooting for your success.